International transformation and success coach Myrna Morris Young delivers life-changing strategies as the host of the Mindset Transformation radio show and podcast. Each show gives you practical tips on living your best life now by changing your mindset to change your life. I am grateful that you have tuned in today from all over the world. I believe that the Spirit of God led you here so that you can receive insight, revelation, and knowledge to see the next step in front of you as God reveals His purpose and destiny in your life. And now, here's Coach Myrna.
Welcome to the Mindset Transformation radio show and podcast. I'm your most gracious host, Coach Myrna. Today we have with us a most special guest, coach and doctor in organizational psychology, Dr. Marcia Reynolds. Welcome, Dr. Marcia. It is a pleasure to have you on our show today. And how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Dr. Marcia Reynolds is going to teach us today how to outsmart your brain. So in keeping with that theme, I wanted to share with you one of the classic stories and how our brain can outsmart us. This story is called Acres of Diamonds. So here goes. There once lived not far from the river Indus an ancient Persian by the name of Al-Fahd. Al-Fahd owned a very large farm with orchards, grain fields, and gardens. He was a contented and wealthy man. Contented because he was wealthy, and wealthy because he was contented. One day, there visited this old farmer one of the ancient Buddhist priests, and he sat down by Al-Fahd's fire and told the old farmer how this world of ours was made. You know, he said that this world was once a mere bank of fog, and the Almighty thrust his finger into the bank of fog and then began slowly to move his finger around and gradually to increase the speed of his fingers until at last he swirled that bank of fog into a solid ball of fire, and it went rolling through the universe, burning its way through other cosmic banks of fog until it condensed the moisture without and fell into floods of rain upon the heated surface and cooled the outward crust. Then the internal flames burst through the cooling crust and threw up the mountains and made the hills and the valleys of this wonderful world of ours. In this internal melted mass burst out, cooled very quickly. It became granite. That which cooled less quickly became silver, and less quickly gold. And after that gold were diamonds, said the old priest. A diamond is a congealed drop of sunlight. There's also some scientific truth to this story. We all know that a diamond is a pure carbon, actually deposited sunlight. The old priest told Al-Fahd that if he had a handful of these diamonds, he can purchase a whole country. And with a mine of diamonds, he can place his children on thrones throughout the world with their great wealth. Al-Fahd heard about diamonds and how much they were worth, and he went to his bed that night a poor man. Not that he lost anything, but poor because he was discontented, and discontented because he thought he was poor. He said, I want a mine of diamonds. So he lay awake all night, and early in the morning, he sought out the priest. This story reminds me of a story I tell my children about the dog and his shadow. If you're not familiar, our dog is walking over a bridge and he sees another dog with a bone. He decides he wants that bone as well and jumps in and loses the bone he has in his mouth because what he saw was not another dog but his own shadow. It is a story of discontent and greed. Well, getting back to our story, Al-Fahd woke the priest out of his dreams and said to him, will you tell me where I can find diamonds? The priest said, diamonds? What do you want with diamonds? I want to be immensely rich, Al-Fahd said, but I don't know where to go. Well, said the priest, if you find a river that runs over white sand between high mountains, in those sands you'll always see diamonds. Do you really believe that there's such a river? Asked Al-Fahd. The priest said, yeah, plenty of them. All you have to do is go find them. Once you have them, and Al-Fahd said, I will go. So he sold his farm, collected his money at interest, left his family in charge of a neighbor, and he went in search of diamonds. He began at the Mountains of the Moon. Afterwards, he went around into Palestine, then wandered into Europe, and at last, when his money was all spent and he was in rags, wretchedness, and poverty, he stood on the shore of that bay in Barcelona, Spain, when a tidal wave came rolling through the pillars of Hercules, and the poor, afflicted, suffering man could not resist the awful temptation to cast himself into that incoming tide, and he sank beneath its foaming crest, never to rise in this life again. Now, Alpha Head's successor one day led his camels into the garden to drink, and that camel put his nose down into the clear water of the garden brook. Alpha Head's successor noticed a curious flash of light from the sands of the shallow stream, and reaching in, he pulled out a black stone having an eye of light that reflected all the colors of the rainbow. And he took that curious pebble into his house and left it on the mantel, then went on his way and forgot all about it. A few days after that, the same old priest who told Al-Fayed how diamonds were made came in to visit his successor. When he saw that flash of light from the mantel, he rushed up and said, "Here's a diamond. Here's a diamond. Has Al-Fayed returned?" No, Al-Fayed has not returned. This is not a diamond. This is nothing but a stone. We found it out here in our garden," said the successor. "But I know a diamond when I see it," the priest said. "This is a diamond." Then they rushed to the garden and stirred up the white sand with their fingers and found others more beautiful, more valuable diamonds than the first. And thus was discovered the diamond mines of the Gondonda, the most magnificent diamond mines in all the history of mankind, exceeding the Kimberley in its value. The great Kushner diamond in England's crown jewels and the largest crown diamond on earth in Russia's crown jewels came from that mine. The moral of the story is, had Al-Fayed remained at home and dug in his own cellar or in his own garden, he would have had an acre of diamonds. We are all acres of diamonds. Each and every one of us is unique with acres of talents and gifts. If we dig, we will find them. Don't be like Al-Fayed and go looking for riches elsewhere. You are all diamonds in the rough. Now, with that story, we're talking about the brain, and we have a most exciting guest who's going to tell us today how we can outsmart our brain so that the brain doesn't tell us to go on wild goose chases. So let me tell you more about Dr. Marcy Reynolds. Dr. Marcy Reynolds is fascinated by the brain, especially what sparks feelings of connection, commitment, and possibility. She's able to draw on her research to help leaders have more meaningful conversations that inspire change. She has delivered workshops in 35 countries and have presented at the Harvard Kennedy School, Cornell University, and the Edwards School of Management in Canada. Marcy is a true pioneer in the coaching profession. She was the 5th global president of the International Coaching Federation and is the training director for the Healthcare Coaching Institute at Virginia Tech. She also teaches for coaching schools in Russia and China. Interviews and excerpts from her books, Outsmart Your Brain, Wonder Woman, and her latest, The Discomfort Zone, How Leaders Turn Difficult Conversations into Breakthroughs, have appeared in many places, including Fast Company, CNN.com, Psychology Today, and the Wall Street Journal. She's also appeared on ABC World News. Marcia's doctoral degree is in organizational psychology with an emphasis on the needs of strong, smart women in today's corporations. She also holds 2 master's degrees in education and communications. Wow, Marcia. Can I call you Marcia? Can we be today?
Sure. And, actually it's pronounced Marcia, even though it's spelled like Marcia, yeah.
Oh, okay, so Marsha, like the Brady Bunch.
Exactly. Right.
All right, well, I will make that change. Welcome, Marsha. Listen.
Thank you.
I didn't know when we first started our conversation that you were one of the presidents of the International Coaching Federation. It is really an honor to have you on our show and to talk to you because I know that coaching is your passion and close to your heart. So awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was fun to be there when everything was just starting out, too.
Oh, so that was a while back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. How many years ago was that? Like 30 years?
Well, coaching, really burst out into the world in 1995, 96. That's when the International Coach Federation started. So there was just a group of us that, had the first conference of like 300 people. We all identified each other by our AOL.com address.
I still keep mine. I love it. By that.
It's just funny. Funny how things change and some things never change.
I mean, I have like 4 emails, but that's the one I like the best.
Well, you should keep it then.
Yeah, I have. I have all these emails, and I have it feed into my AOL account because I know how to use it and separate and all these things. But so that's awesome. Now, the reason I asked you that is because I just became a coach about 3 years ago, and when I heard that the word life coach, it was new to me. I had never heard it before. And when I was in school, I got my certifications from the University of Miami. Our teachers who were master coaches started talking about 30 years ago. They were the pioneers in coaching, and that's why I asked you that.
Well, everybody wants to claim that, so I guess it's how you define coaching. So.
Honestly, almost all of them they're saying it started way back then. Okay, awesome.
Well, there was a lot of ways people define helping others, and I guess that's the point, is that have you dedicated your life to being in service? So whatever you call it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we're off to a great start. I am so excited to talk to you about the brain today because, brain and emotions and all that, because that is basically our blueprint and how we can live a life of any kind of value. So we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to come right back and get into it. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Mindset Transformations Radio Show with your host, Coach Myrna. Do you feel the need to do more with your life? Are limiting beliefs holding you back from true success? Enjoy a unique blend of interviews, discussions, and transformation coaching in every show. Get the tools for success. The Mindset Transformation Radio Show with your host, Coach Myrna.
Welcome back to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Myrna, and today we are speaking to Dr. Marsha. And Dr. Marsha is going to tell us how to outsmart your brain. And obviously, if you're outsmarting your brain, it's because you want to have a desired end. So, Dr. Marsha, can you tell us what was your journey into becoming a coach and understanding the emotions and the brain and things like that?
Sure. Well, I stepped out of 16 years of corporate work where I was always involved with management training, communication skills, trying to bring people together, which isn't always the easiest thing. And yet it was always based in technique, like, well, if you follow these rules, you'll be able to connect better. But there was always something missing. And when I left the corporate world, that's when this, coaching thing was really coming out. It was mid-1990s, and I looked into it and I said, my most significant work was always on a personal level, one-on-one. And at the same time, Daniel Goleman, it was 1996 when he came out with his book Emotional Intelligence, and I said, missing link. And understand, I also worked in technical fields for 11 of those years where, we didn't talk emotions. But yet if you don't talk about emotions, you're not talking about the human. And so I dived into that. I designed a training program. I started teaching it all over the world, and which what got me all excited and curious about the brain. So that was kind of the launch of the journey.
Wow, great. Well, I know about Daniel Goleman because one of my guests on the show, we talked about emotional intelligence. And what I do whenever I have a guest on the show, I research a topic so I can at least converse intelligently. And I know that he was like the grandfather of it all, but emotional intelligence, yes. And so that's awesome. Okay, so so you came out of, and obviously that's why your niche is leaders. I noticed that in your book, your second book, The Discomfort Zone. I actually went on and I read some of the write up on that and read some of the things that you were talking about there, and that's basically what your book is about. The same thing, helping leaders, I guess, work with their employees based on emotionals and the timing and things like that. Correct?
Yeah, it's emotions and coaching. The book is really a coaching book, but it's how to use it in leadership conversations. But it's been real popular with the coaches all over the world just because I get into the true value of deep listening really in any of our conversations which lead to whether the quality of the relationship we have. So that presence, to me, the foundation of coaching or just any relationship is presence, and how connected are we really in this moment? How do we take the time to just be with someone and let them know, where they can sense and they can feel that we're truly with them and care about them and respect their point of view?
Yeah, that was one of the, in my coaching class, one of my most profound sessions was the deep listening and hearing beyond. I love that.
Right.
As a salesperson for many years, I understood,
definitely
that, exactly, you've got to be present, you've got to hear, the buying signals, and you've got to hear what they're not saying. So that was actually pretty good for me. I love that. And, I think it's one of my strengths, too, to actually be present and listen deeply. So that's awesome. Okay. All right. Well, let's get on our topic today. What do you mean by outsmarting our brain or your brain?
Well, we act as if the brain is so powerful. Well, it is powerful, but it's not always acting in your best interest. That the primary purpose of the brain is to protect you, to keep you alive, to keep you safe, to defend you from harm. It's not necessarily there to make sure that you're smart or that you even connect with people. That's secondary only if first you feel safe. And you can see this, anytime you say something to someone and their brain perceives it as a threat, they get defensive. And they get defensive right away without thought. They didn't think, oh, you're hurting me, I'm going to be defensive, right? And then if you tell them, oh, don't be so defensive, what happens? They get worse, right? I know, because the brain is, pulling out its swords. So the thing is that outsmarting your brain is to be able to make good choices, to be able to stop and say, what's really happening here? What is my brain perceiving, but what's really true? It's a lot of what we do for people when we coach them, but some of these things, you can't call your coach in the moment. So you need to know how to be able to stop, breathe, and really make the best choices.
Okay. So the way we're technically outsmarting our brain is we're not reacting immediately. We are we're taking that 10-second count, or, that I've heard before. That's how, that's the format. Okay. So we're
and part of it is taking that count, but you've got to, this comes back to that whole emotion. The importance of emotions we talked about before is also, in order to make your brain work, you have to shift your emotions, because I could take 10 seconds, but if I'm still taking what you say to me very personally, and it makes me angry or afraid, I'm still going to react. I'm going to breathe for 10 seconds, and I'm still going to react, But if I can take those 10 seconds, and in those 10 seconds, take that breath and remember that I care about you, and that your intention wasn't to hurt me. Can I shift how I feel in this moment is going to help me to think through, because your emotions are going to totally direct your thoughts. It used to be we thought it was the other way around, that your thoughts created your emotions. So that whole change your thoughts, you change your behavior. But that's just not true when there's a strong emotion. So it's your emotion takes over. You have to change your emotion before you can actually change your thought and change your behavior.
Okay. So that reminds me of a book that I read. And the gentleman was talking about the same thing, and he was saying that nobody is ever going to make that shift in the moment. You have to train yourself to do it before, like building the muscle. So how do you, what is your advice on that? How do you train yourself? Because in the moment, nobody's going to remember when they're angry.
Well, but you can. I actually have a 4-step technique that I developed years ago when I wrote the first book, Outsmart Your Brain. I actually was working with a sports psychologist and interviewing top professional athletes on how they get in the zone in that moment under great pressure. And they all had similar things that they did. I mean, some of them had, some superstitious stuff. It was different. But there were similar things. And when I went deeper into the research, I found that it has to go in a particular order. So the 4 steps are real briefly, and then if you want to look at them more, we can. But the first step is you always have to start by relaxing your body. So we think we have to change our thoughts, but if you're driving in your car and and people are cutting you off and you're impatient, if you tell yourself don't be so impatient, how long does that last? So you have to first relax your body, because that's going to release the tension that allows you then to work with your brain. The tension in your body actually decreases blood flow to the brain. So we need to open up the brain. So you just, take a breath, let it out, and release the tension in your muscles, just a second or two. You can do that. So step 1 is relax your body, and then as best as you can, just clear your mind. I mean, even if it's just for a second, you clear your mind. You don't think of a thought. You clear your mind and quickly drop your awareness to the center of your body. So step 3 is to center, that place right below your navel, that point of strength, that chi, ki energy they talk about in Eastern philosophy. It's real, you drop your awareness to your center, and then you choose, how do I want to feel in this moment? Do I want to be calm? Do I want to care? Do I want gratitude? Maybe I want to be angry, but make it a choice. So it's relax, detach, center, and focus on how you want to feel. And you can do this quickly.
Well, that's awesome. Well, that negates what the gentleman was saying, that you've got to train it like a muscle, because you're not going to react in the moment. Probably both is correct, because anything that you are habitual, and this can also become a habit, then, the more you do it, the more,
you remember.
Exactly. That person, you will react. So that is awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
People have been, I've gotten emails over the years from all over the world of people saying, thank you for that simple technique, relax, detach, center, focus. I do it before I go into meetings. And if I get really angry at my kids, and it's so helpful. So,
good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're getting off topic, but that's what a nice conversation is all about. I remember when I was in my training class, and you had to practice coaching with another student. So you always have to bring something that you want to change into.
Right. That's the hard part.
A real scenario. And my scenario was, I want to become less reactive. So, and I've worked on that over the years. It's amazing because I know that external triggers push my buttons, and I didn't want to become more. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be less reactive, and over the years, I have worked on it. But I will definitely try yours now.
Good. Very good.
Awesome. So, all right. So, what prompts our brains to do things that could sabotage our best intentions? So let's say somebody comes into the coaching conversation. They hire a coach to spend the money because there's something they want to do, right? And the brain keeps sabotaging anyway, even though they've got the vision, they've got the goal, but somehow they never get there because of the brain. What prompts your brain to do that?
Well, you know how people always say to you, "Oh, don't take it so personally," but that's what the brain does. Is that we're not looking at their intentions. The brain, again, because it's trying to protect you, it takes everything personally. So it perceived a threat to something important to you, and then it has you react. So that's what emotional triggers are. It's the things that we're protecting. So it's not just protecting you, because probably the person didn't try to hit you, but the brain reacts as if they did, because you're afraid that maybe they won't like you, or maybe they say something that your brain perceives as disrespectful, or you won't be able to demonstrate a competency, which makes you vulnerable. So all these little things that the brain says, danger, danger, and then you react. You either shut down or you get defensive, depending on your tendency to fight or flight.
Okay. That's new information to me. I like that. Okay. Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like there's something that we can do after we've had an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
Is there something that we can do to stop reacting other than the relax, detach, get to your center and figure out how you want to feel? Is there something else?
Well, if you find yourself that you keep cycling back to your reaction, then you do want to go in more deeply and do the trigger work. So that's what a lot of the work I've been working on over the years, and I think I mentioned the emotional triggers in all my books, is to understand that your triggers are there because they help you to be successful. So let's say, you worry that someone might not like you. Well, that's because you're a likable person, and that's how you've built on your success of caring about people and connecting with them. So if there's a threat to that, the brain reacts. So common threats in the workplace are like respect. Respect is important to me. I work really hard. But then if somebody interrupts me in a meeting and just changes the subject, then I might react because my brain perceives they don't respect me or they're trying to steal control from me. They may not have been doing that at all. That may not have been their intention, but that's what my brain sees. So it's important to look at what are these triggers? And, I have a whole list of them on my website, outsmartyourbrain.com. And I think even if you Google emotional triggers, I come up number one.
Very nice.
But it's so important that we look, and why I can't tell you what yours are is that we don't all have different ones, but when I teach this in the classroom, I always say, okay, 3 people stand up and read their top 3 triggers, and most likely all 3, they may have one that are like, but the other 2 are different. So I have triggers for attention. I like attention. For recognition, I like to be recognized and valued for the work that I have done. And for I used to have one for control. That over the years that one has really softened. But when I was younger, I took charge of things, I took control, and I had great success for that.
You're a strong woman, and that's what we do.
Exactly. So if somebody tries to take control from me, I fight. And sometimes they didn't really mean it. So if I could step back and say, were they really trying to take control from me, or were they just wanting attention, then I might be able to more easily shift.
Well, actually, that's a good topic to explore. Emotional triggers in the workplace, emotional triggers at home, because you're right. We all have the triggers, and it's really it's an important thing, because we all know that one of the foundations of coaching is once you're aware of it, then you've already started to solve the problem. Awareness is key. So you've got to be aware.
Absolutely.
You've got to understand yourself and know what your triggers are. So I'm going to have to go start looking at mine. I know what triggers other people, because a lot of people, if I'm upset about something, then it's going to come across in my tone, and everybody keeps, responding to that. And that's one of the things that I personally have to work on. But so it's other people's triggers. But because I do it, it doesn't trigger me at all. I mean, you can.
Right. We trigger other people.
Somebody, don't talk to me like that.
Exactly.
You're upset. That's how you're supposed to talk. But their emotional trigger is probably respect, right? So they're picking up a disrespectful tone, and it's triggering them. So that is good. Yeah, I mean, the audience, we're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot, which is one of the reasons I love to do these interviews, because, it increases my knowledge base. So that is awesome. All right. And how can you use our heart and gut to override, our brain?
Well, that's actually been, for the last few years, my focus of research. There's a lot of research coming out now that's actually looking at how to use the entire nervous system. So we often think of our brain, but the brain is attached by a great big nerve called the vagus nerve to the heart and the gut. And the gut and the heart actually process input all the time, but it has to send it to the brain to translate. So we tend to ignore our heart and our gut, even though they're telling us, sometimes screaming at us, to do things. And so sometimes just quieting your mind and saying, okay, heart, what should I do? Or when you're afraid, okay, gut, what should I do? Is really helpful. Or knowing that because I was trained and raised to be a strong woman, that I often don't listen to my heart. I shut it down, because I didn't want to look weak. But it's in those moments that I'm talking to someone that I care about and we get into an argument, that if I take a breath and just go into my heart, that I'm going to say different things than if it just spouts out of my head. So the heart is about, caring, what we care about, and your gut is your will to move forward, so it's your courage. And you open your heart and your gut with emotion. So when I think of someone I deeply care about, I remember that I'm thankful for them and I love them. And when we feel those things, our heart opens. And you can do it even looking out at a beautiful scenery. Your heart opens. And then you can listen and speak through your heart. But your gut, you need to remember a time in your life when you spoke up or you stood up in spite of your fear. And what does it feel like to be courageous? And when you remember that moment, then your gut opens. And when you have your heart and your gut open, then it's what I call three-brain wisdom. You can actually access all three of your brains that are along the nervous system. And you have much more that you can access to know what to say in this moment that will have a better impact than just relying on your head brain.
So the 3-brain system is the brain, the gut, and what's the other one?
The heart.
The heart.
Let's not forget our heart.
Okay.
See, that's what happens with strong women.
Well, I was concentrating as you were talking on something that I'm actually working on right now about the universal force, and the universal force is love, and it comes from the heart chakra. And
absolutely.
As you were talking, I was actually, a little bit more, concentrating on that, and of course, then I forgot the heart afterwards. But that was very that was awesome. Yeah.
It really is the chakra system.
Right now.
Yeah.
Universal force, right?
Yeah.
The heart.
Right,
Yeah.
and isn't that interesting, too, because the whole chakra system does go, and it correlates with your entire nervous system.
Right.
And it's all connected. It's all connected and talking to each other all the time.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it went as far to say that we're communicating with each other, and that's one of the next things that I'm going to research. We're communicating with each other through our emotions. I mean, it's a language. It's a language that we speak. For instance,
it's so true.
My husband walks in and he's upset about something. He doesn't even have to say it, but I pick it up because it's a language that we communicate. And it talks about what energies are you deposited into your environment, and what energies are people sending, and it's all through that same heart chakra. So.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is that what they're now finding in this research is that when you connect at those, it's not just what we can receive, but also the energy we put out. Yeah. So in the therapy world, they call this therapeutic presence, that when they open their heart and their gut, as well as their head, the person feels a deeper level of safety and is willing to be more vulnerable in the conversation. And so this is really important to coaches, too, that we have to stay out of our head and quit trying to remember what question to ask. That if we're fully present, the right question will emerge.
Yeah. Well, it comes with practice because when you're in class or as a beginning coach, you're very nervous about it. And
I know.
What question I should ask next. But after a while, it flows just like how we're flowing right now, right? So
exactly. It's like playing the piano. Right. Got to play your scales first.
That is true. And then after a while, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, moving on right along. So that was pretty good. Are the brains of men and women wired differently?
I remember for years when I was first in emotional intelligence that this was a very strong argument that people wanted to say that we're born different. And I was always saying, no, I don't think so. I think it's learned behavior. And they're finding now evidence of that we're humans. We're born with a similar wiring in biology. There may be tendencies toward whether you're introvert, extrovert, things like that, but in terms of our relationship. But what happens is whatever is rewarded as we're raised is then how we wire. So, typically it was, men were raised to focus on problem solving and find answers and very head-based, where, women were raised that the importance of a relationship, so it was a little bit more heart-based. But that's changing. And that's why I was saying, because my doctoral research was on, high-achieving women in the workplace. And again, a lot of us had to learn to kind of quiet our hearts. And so our wiring, was more head and gut-based, and we have to open our hearts. And the generations of men that, many of them now being brought up by single moms,
right?
is that I find, especially when I teach coaches, far more men that are heart based, and and need to open up their gut in order to be a little bit more direct. So that wiring, the stereotype of wiring is just that. It's a stereotype. It's what has been rewarded and what has been developed, and the beauty of it is it can always be changed.
So you're saying we're evolving?
Isn't that wonderful? In this very moment, your brain is rewiring, which is yay.
Yeah. Wow.
So it can harden, if you just sit and watch the same TV all day long and talk to the same people, it does kind of like harden and sets in place. But anytime you open to learning and to listening to new ideas and even driving, to your friend's house a different way, you just change things up a little, you actually rewire the brain. That's what neuroplasticity means, is that it's totally flexible.
It helps you when you get old, so you don't get dementia.
Absolutely. You got to keep using that brain.
Yeah, awesome. So what you're saying is that we can teach an old dog, new tricks?
Absolutely. There was this wonderful monastery up in, I think it's Minnesota, where for women, the nuns, they get up every day and they have to do their crossword puzzles. They do mental exercises as well as physical, and the average age of the women is well over 100, and very few of them get dementia. So this, and they read to each other, and this, constantly sharing and using their brains in new ways.
Yeah, I've been actually aware of that, and that's why I try to do the same thing. I'm not going to go as far as learning a new language, which is supposed to be the top.
That's the first thing to go as we age. The ability to learn a language is the first thing we use and the first thing that goes. So, I always say, forget it.
I know, I'm not going to do that, but I do try to do things differently so that I can rewire the brain, because I'm aware of that cognitive decline if you don't use your brain.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, we have had a really good conversation. Let's take a quick station break, and we'll be right back.
If you are listening to this broadcast, it means that you are hungry for growth, hungry for change, hungry for insights, revelation, and knowledge. Whatever you need in your life, you will receive it today. For the past 20 years, Myrna has been an entrepreneur. As past CEO of Royal Livery Limousine Service and now CEO of My Helps Coaching and Consulting Services, Myrna has achieved good success. Awarded Entrepreneur of the Year, Myrna knows what it takes to help you be successful. Myrna helps her coaching clients to design a practical plan to close the gap of where they are today and where they would like to be tomorrow. In business, relationships, health, or career goals. That is why Myrna is offering a free 1-hour strategy session valued at $150, totally free. No strings attached. If you are listening right now, go to www.myrnayounghelps.com/contact.us. and sign up now for a free session with Coach Myrna. She has helped business owners and other clients just like you overcome their obstacles and set them on a path to success. Take advantage of this offer today. Go to www.myrnayounghelps.com/contactus.us right now.
Welcome back to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show with your host, Coach Myrna. Today we are speaking to Dr. Marsha. And we have had a really good conversation about our brain and aging and emotions and our triggers. And as we come into our final segment, I just wanted to ask Dr. Marsha if she has any leave-behinds for you that you can, other than, I know one of my most important takeaways from this session is the technique in how to shift when you're reacting. I think that each and every one of us, that's listening can do something better with that, because we know that people or children or spouses, people at work, they all push our buttons. So one of the great things is how we can learn to relax, detach, breathe, and figure out how you feel. and then respond that way. But so do you have any other leave-behinds that, the audience can practice to outsmart their brain?
Actually, if they go on my website, the outsmartyourbrain.com, and under the Discomfort Zone, there's a quiz and videos, but there's also a page called Discomfort Zone Training Support. And on that page is a visualization that you can do to open your heart and your gut as well as your head. And I provide it for like coaches, but again, it can be used for anyone to connect better in their conversations. So there's the training support, the training videos, a quiz on how to rate your zone of discomfort in conversation. So there's a lot of resources they can access for free under the Discomfort Zone on outsmartyourbrain.com.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, I am pretty sure that, a lot of our listeners will go and do that, because this is information that will allow us to live our best life now. Understanding, because awareness is like the primary, is the key. One of my catchphrases is, you've got to know yourself to grow yourself. So
very good.
You got to know your weaknesses, your strengths. You got to know your triggers, and you got to know where you want to end up, so that you can, you can tweak the path or tweak the environment, as we can say. All right. So, do you? I know you're still coaching, correct?
I am.
Okay. So, do you have any? What do you offer as far as your coaching business to anybody listening?
Well, since I do spend a lot of my time teaching coaching, for different schools in the U.S., Russia, and China, I do mentor coaches, especially coaches going for certification with the ICF. So if they're interested, they can contact me at Marcia, M-A-R-C-I-A, at outsmartyourbrain.com. I do probably more of that than even. I do coach executives in companies, but I do a lot of mentor coaching as well. I love it. I love helping coaches because I love the people that dedicate themselves to coaching.
Yeah, I know. I know that's your passion. I could tell that. You're one of the pioneers in the coaching industry, so we're very grateful for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, we've got the Marcia at outsmartyourbrain.com. We have got www.outsmartyourbrain.com for your training resources and for some visualization techniques to open up your brain and your gut. And, of course, if anybody is listening that is looking for a mentor coach, one of the, which is pretty good, one of the most, everywhere a lot of people come to me and wanting to become a life coach and become coaching certified. It's a growing industry, and a lot of people are attracted to that industry because, we all want to help. We all want to contribute to this world, and it's a good way to contribute to others by helping them to achieve their goals and their desires and their vision. So I thank you for us being in the same space, for, wanting to contribute and to make this world a better place and to make women and men succeed in, their life goals. So I thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
I learned a lot. And, I will definitely, go on your website and also, look at some of your resources. And, of course, I know coaches that, might be able to utilize your services as being a mentor.
Great.
So as we wrap up, I want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in. We are here every Wednesday at between 5 and 6 on this same station. And if you wanted to access some of my past shows, if you've missed them, you can pick them up on my YouTube channel, which is My Helps, which is MYHELPS. If you wanted to be a guest in the show or is interested in any kind of one-on-one coaching, then you can contact me. My website is www.myrnayounghelps.com. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, and we send you love. Thank you.